Welcome to this edition of Lee's Open Mic. And today, we're so happy to have our buddy Josh Arnold with us. Josh, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Josh is here specifically to talk about the train wreck that is Greg Warren and why it went off the rails. And so your analysis is what?
Well, I think there's some deep-seated emotional issues that he's just never addressed.
Yeah.
And once he is able to sit down with a professional and get all that worked out, I think things will get back to normal.
I don't think that'll happen.
No, I don't think he's too stubborn.
Yeah.
So
Greg is a Missouri guy. You're a Missouri guy.
Yes.
You guys knew each other before comedy, or would that bring you together, the Missouri connection? What happened?
we met. I started doing open mics, and he was already an established comedian. And
Established.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And he then became a good friend and a mentor, and started taking me with him on the road after I was able to. Once I got decent enough to do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's one of my best friends now. So
You are now a part of the cast of the Bob and Tom Show, and I can't be more proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Because I knew Josh, when he was a middle act and he was featuring, and he was going around, and to land that gig. For radio, I mean, it is essentially almost the equivalent of the Tonight Show in a lot of ways. I mean, that's a big deal to be a part of those guys.
yes, it was a big deal for me just to be a guest on that show. When I
Sure.
first started comedy, that was my, and this may sound weird to some, that was my main comedy goal, was to get on that show and to make them laugh.
Yeah.
And I listened to them growing up in St. Louis. They were syndicated. I would buy all their CDs. I was a huge fan. And then to just be a guest and then guest host and now to be a permanent part of it, it's still surreal to me. It's amazing.
I'm a big fan of Griswold. I've always, and I may be the only guy, I don't know.
You're not, but
But I always, he's I know that he's the engine that drives the train for that show, but I think he's a little underrated as far as how funny he is in a lot of ways.
yeah, he is.
Because Tom's a lot like Chico Marx. Groucho and Harpo, and let's say Chick and you and those guys are swinging for fences. But without Tom, things don't work as well.
No.
And you got to have that guy who could actually, it's in a way, this is my analogy with Chico, could find a way, because Harpo and Groucho, they blow everybody's circuits except for one guy, and that's Chico, who would blow their circuits.
Yes, exactly.
The absurdity is at another level.
Yeah, I mean,
he would frustrate those two, yeah.
he's so great at what he does, and it is underrated because people don't realize that he kind of conducts the show, whether it be by saying something, all right, time to move on, or laughing at something, and then you can continue on that. And he's just so smart. He actually underrates himself. He's way funnier than he thinks he is.
And I felt good about your longevity on that show when I was listening and Griswold was going after you pretty hard. And I felt, okay, good, he likes him. Because I think that's the way he shows affinity.
It is.
He was doing some fat joke about you and cracking himself up, and I thought, okay, Josh is good. Josh is golden. He'll be be there for a while.
Yeah,
That's
maybe.
good.
Yeah, the last thing I would want is for Tom to come up and go, you know what, man, I love you, and what did I do wrong?
No. Yeah, no, you don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I really do feel a part of it now.
And is that? Because you're in a position like I am, where I get to take advantage of the two worlds to hone the craft itself. Mm-hmm. So I get to test things on stage that work in broadcast, and vice versa to some degree.
Yes.
And so you're taking advantage of that, I would assume, and you're
Yeah.
starting to see that manifest.
A little bit, yeah. The radio, I rely more on my improv skills, but then if we're talking about something or I riff some line that I think could work as a planned bit on stage, I definitely try it out on stage.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it can translate.
Who influenced you growing up there, Josh?
Steve Martin, Benny Hill, I would watch when I was a little kid. And my favorite comedian was Robert Schimmel. When I watched his HBO special, Unprotected, that's when I went, okay, I want to give that a shot.
Yeah.
But I was doing stand-up in the school variety shows from kindergarten up.
I started binging on Rowan Atkinson, Mr. Bean.
Oh, brilliant.
Last couple of days. The physicality is just really, again, it's sort of like a Harpo Marx kind of thing.
Yes.
I mean, it's unbelievable how good he is.
It's insane how good he is. And if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and watch the special where he's doing the like giant xylophone thing, unbelievable. Yeah, that's something that I'm definitely learning with radio, and it took a while for me to learn with stand-up. There's a physical side of it with stand-up, where you don't just stand there talking into a mic. You can do act-outs. You can actually present some of the scenes that you're talking about. With radio, you can't, and so you have to use your words a little bit more efficiently and strongly. And it's really interesting. I'm still learning a ton every day.
I saw Seinfeld live a couple of years ago, and I was surprised about his physicality. Because, he seems to be a wordsmith, a guy that we all know about, the way he does observational humor. And then he's really pacing the stage and playing it bigger than life.
Yes.
I mean, it's a large theater, obviously, so he's got to play to the back of the room to some degree. But I didn't know he would be that energetic. I was surprised by his physicality.
Yeah, and that surprise, I think, helps make the laugh even stronger.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because when you first started talking about it, the bit that comes to mind is he's talking about policemen on horses, and he starts doing the movement, and you don't expect him to. And not only is it a brilliant observation, but the movement is so funny, it just adds to it.
What are some of the, you got a sort of a hell gig, Josh, that you had to go through once that you tell other comics that has stuck with you?
Yeah, there are a handful. The biggest hell gig was, I was at a club in northern Ohio, and I literally just bombed for 6 shows straight. I mean, hard. I had just gotten off of my first guest appearance on Bob and Tom, and it went well. Yeah. And I had just quit my job. And so I was with Greg Warren, and we were at this Funny Bone, and and Greg, God bless him, so I started off doing 25, and then the next show he goes, hey, maybe just do 20. That Sunday night, I did 12 minutes because I was just eating it so hard. And the worst part of it was, during one of the shows, it wasn't that they were booing, or I wish they had been booing, utter silence. Yeah. So I just felt like a lunatic. Can they even hear me?
Right.
And during one of the shows.
Were you seasoned enough at that point, though, to call that, make that a point?
I should have.
Call attention to that.
I was not.
Okay. So you weren't quite seasoned enough to understand, I got to observe this. And
right.
Make
No, I plowed through.
Yeah,
I just kept doing my material as though everything were fine. Right. And I guess that's better than, getting upset and like yelling at. Because the one thing I can't stand is if a comedian goes, oh, what's wrong with you folks? Or what's, maybe nothing. Maybe they just don't like you. I mean, that happens. Yeah. And so, and quite honestly, I probably wasn't ready for that room at the time. Mm-hmm. I was probably ready to MC it, but maybe not necessarily do 25.
Right.
And so, halfway through one of the sets, I finish a joke, utter silence, and I just hear one guy in the middle of a sold-out comedy club go, wow. And that's when I went, this is the worst thing I've ever done.
There's nothing like that feeling.
No, there isn't, because part of you feels insane. Yeah. I was like, this stuff was working in a lot of clubs that I had already worked. Bob and Tom laughed at it. Am I nuts? Did that not happen?
Right.
Or So yeah, it was wild.
But now you get to a point, though, where you can almost embrace those moments.
And I absolutely do.
Where because my mindset is, when that's happening, all right, I'm going to enjoy this. If you guys aren't, at least I'm going to have fun. Here we go.
Yeah.
And if you can find a way to get to that moment, usually they'll come around. It's sort of like shepherding.
Yeah, exactly.
Move these sheep.
Because they'll go, oh, he's a human. He's not just a robot up there, spewing out pre-written things. He's actually in the moment.
Yeah, that's great. So, Bob and Tom, you're still traveling on the road. How many dates you doing now?
Not nearly as many as I was when I was featuring for a living. So, every couple months I go out. Yeah. And that's so that I can focus mostly on the show, and I don't miss. A lot of clubs are Thursday through Sunday or Wednesday through Saturday or whatever, and so I don't miss mornings. Yeah. Do
you ever do the morning show by remote? Do they allow that, or is that part of the? You have to be in the room.
I think you have to be in the room. I've called in.
Yeah.
I was out. Man, I first started, and the second month I had that job, I had appendicitis, and so I was out for a week, and they let me call in. but only for a segment or two. So, 'cause
Right.
you could do it remotely, but it's so much. The energy is
I
so
know.
different.
No, I
Yeah,
get that.
absolutely.
I get that. I know, but I didn't know if they, would allow that or if they wanted you to do that.
No, they'll bring in a guest host, which
Yeah.
is great.
Okay. Well, good. Well, hey, Josh, I'm so happy for your success.
Thank you so much.
You're
Lee.
living the dream there, buddy.
I literally
Good job.
am, man. This is it's still crazy to think about, but I'm loving it.
Josh Arnold. If you get a chance, go see this guy, and of course you can hear him every day on the Bob and Tom Show. That'll do it for this version of Lee's Open Mic.